Hey everybody, it's Craig Syracuse. Welcome to a new episode of Walk in Faith. I'm sitting down with my friend Blake Brewer. Blake and I met over a year ago at the Fatherhood Co-Commission. I think it was in Georgia, right? Rome, Georgia. And
Yeah.
I heard your story that day, and we were able to reconnect again because I know you're headed to New York next week. And when you told me about the Legacy Letter Challenge and how you're trying to reach 1 million fathers, I said, you and I have to reconnect, and you need to tell me the story, and my viewers need to listen to the story. So, Blake, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, Craig. Well, I'm excited to be here. Yeah, my dad did something pretty amazing for me. I believe that the most powerful words spoken on the planet are spoken by a father. And my dad took his words and he really increased the impact of them and made them lasting. I got a call from my mom when I was 19 years old. She said that we're going on a family trip to Hawaii.
Wow.
I said, heck yeah, let's go. And the first day that we were there, we were all snorkeling in a place called Hanama Bay. And everybody decided to, they were tired of snorkeling. They're laying down on the beach, everyone except for my dad. And my dad said, I'm not laying down. We're in Hawaii. I'm going back out there. And so I ran to catch up to my dad. And so, my dad was a really good dad. In a lot of ways, my dad was my hero and really just larger than life, honestly. And so as I was standing next to my dad on the beach that day, I still felt like a little kid standing next to my dad, even though I was 19 years old. Now, part of that was my dad was a big guy, so he had been drafted by the Atlanta Falcons to play tight end. And he his kind of main claim to fame, though, is that he was Terry Bradshaw's tight end at
Oh,
Louisiana
wow.
Tech. And so they were best friends and roommates. And, you can imagine some of the stories that came out of their college years. But my dad was a really humble guy and kind of introverted. So he hardly ever told anyone that he was Bradshaw's tight end. But I told everybody. It was like my claim to fame. So we put on the snorkel gear, we headed out in the water, and we ended up in an area that I now know is called Witch's Brew, which is known for its treacherous waters. And it was treacherous that day. And I found myself at a spot where I didn't know where my dad was. And so I started scanning the water and I eventually saw him. And I could tell that my dad was in trouble. And my dad looked right at me and he started yelling for help. And, I need help. I need help. And my dad had this big, deep, booming voice, but his yell for help was more like a whimper. And so I swam to my dad as quickly as I could. And by the time I reached him, he was underneath the water and my dad was unconscious. And so I put my arms around my dad and, to the best of my ability, began to swim with him to shore. Uh, Luckily, a nearby snorkeler showed up and helped me get my dad to shore. The lifeguard started doing CPR, and I really thought that at any moment my dad was going to come to, like in the movies when you see the water flicker out of their mouth, the water come out of their mouth, eyes flicker open, but it never happened. And so my dad ended up drowning that day, and it literally went from one of the best moments of my life, snorkeling with my dad in Hawaii, to now it is the worst moment of my life. And I remember just already thinking, man, how am I about to make it without my dad? Like, how are we going to make it? And so then it was a few hours later that we were back in the condo and I was sitting on the edge of the bed, just really still in shock. But my mom appeared in the doorway and she said, I found something in your dad's briefcase, something that I know he was going to give you on this trip. I had no idea what she was talking about, but she was holding some sheets of paper. And she walked across the room and handed them to me. And at the top, it said, Dear Blake, Natalie, and Marcus. It was a letter.
Mm.
And my dad had apparently been working on this letter for several months. He had no idea that he was about to die, had no idea that this was going to be his final words to us. And so as I began to read this letter, it was everything that I needed in that moment. My dad shared with us how he felt about us, shared some life advice, and shared some wisdom. But to be honest, Craig, I just felt so loved that my dad would write this. Don't tell me my dad didn't love me. My dad
Mhm.
was a hospital administrator. He refed football games on the side. He was involved in our church. Like, he was a very busy guy. I see now that I'm a dad of three, like how busy life is. But in the midst of all that, my dad
Mm.
took the time to write us this letter. And so as I'm reading through it, I get to the last line of this letter, and I believe that only God could have allowed my dad to write this, but he wrote, as you're being faithful to the Bible, you're often going to find yourself in the minority here on
Right.
earth. But I can assure you that in heaven, you'll be in the majority. Love your dear
Wow.
old dad. And I remember just thinking, man, I'm gonna see my dad again.
Wow.
And so that letter absolutely helped me get through that time in my life. It gave me hope. It gave me confidence, especially that next year when I was grieving so hard. I mean, I remember almost every night just laying in my bed, just crying myself to sleep, just thinking through and reliving that day, and even asking myself the question, man, could I have done something differently? Um, but really, I had some people tell me at the end of the year, they said, Blake, you really grieved this in a really healthy way compared to most people. And I did. I know the pain that I was feeling. I could have easily escaped the pain, drugs, alcohol, girls, whatever, but I didn't. I leaned in more to my relationship with God, leaned in more to my family and friends. And I attributed all this to my dad's letter. Like my dad's letter, I couldn't even imagine where I would be today if my dad had not written that letter.
Wow. I was going to ask you too, what was the last line? And then when you said it, it was so personal to me, especially. I mean, that's something that we all think about. I know my parents are a little bit older now, and they have a difficulty, and just most people have a difficulty expressing love or letting their children know how much they care for them and love them. But being able to write a letter and it's something so tangible, and to have that still to this day is just something that, like you said, it's something we should all do, especially as fathers and mothers. We should express our love for our children, whether it's by writing it down or expressing it that way. I mean, your story is just, I can't imagine what you went through that day, to be honest with you. I can't even I can't even imagine it.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I think back to them a lot is my mom and my sister. They were laying out and they saw the commotion going on the beach, and they said, "Hey, that's where Dad is," and Blake, and they ran up, and you can imagine, they saw the lifeguards, everyone doing CPR, and hoping that it wasn't one of us, and it was my dad, and my mom just ran into my arms. I was like, Mom, I don't think he's gonna make it.
Oh my God.
So, but I mean, the power of a letter. Um, I mean, with all the noise that's going on in the world and all the people trying to influence us, and I mean, the letter just cuts through all of that, and you read it, and you're like, no, I know my dad felt this way
That's right.
about me. I can read it right here. If there's ever a doubt in my head, did your dad really say X? Did your dad really believe that? One of the things that I had to wrestle through was how can a good God allow my dad to die like that?
Yeah.
And as I wrestled through that, I knew the answer was not that God was not good, because my dad believed that God was good. And it was in the letter. And so, man, one of the things my dad did with that letter, and as now I'm helping dads write this letter, is really win the hearts of their children. And every single one of us wants our dads to come after our heart and win it. And the things that I help dads write in this letter, I love you, I'm proud of you, I believe in you, even apologize.
Yeah.
Man, we're going right for the heart.
Yeah. I mean, those are the things that we need to hear, those like that you love me, that you're proud of me. I mean, my son, he's only 6. The other day, he said something to me. He goes, Daddy, you don't like me. And where he got that from, he's only 6, but it makes you think differently. It makes me think about what am I doing that's allowing him to feel that way? Because I have to look at myself and say, maybe there's something that I can change because I don't want that pattern to continue where he thinks and questions. So imagine now when you're older, right? I mean, I remember my dad didn't always say he loved me. Now he has as he's gotten older, but it was something that I needed. I needed to hear from my father, from my mother, that I was loved, even though I felt it and they provided for me. Me as a person, me as an emotional being, I need to hear that. And sometimes too, it's hard to say to people that, God is a loving father. God loves you when you've never experienced the love of a father, or someone never expressed to you how much you're loved. And having that letter, I mean, it's powerful. Like you said, it cuts through everything. Any thought or anything that would negate what we're saying, or God, or the actions, it's in that letter. It's exactly what we need to hear.
Yeah, and I've helped a lot of dads who wrote this letter who would say, "Man, I don't know if my kids want this letter from me, or maybe their relationship is rocky." And to your point, like their kids have said things to them like, "I don't need you, Dad," or "I don't want you," and so there's some hurt there. But as dads, it's our job to pursue our children because what did our Heavenly
Hmm.
Father do for us? I mean, we have turned our backs on God, and yet He still sent His Son to die out like the most loving thing He could have ever done. He pursued us, and so by writing this letter, really it's in a really small way of what God the Father did for us, man. We're pursuing our children, we're coming after them, we're coming after their heart. I love
That's
you,
right. Constant, and
inviting
you got
them.
to constantly say it. I mean, you have to, it's every day. It's a lifestyle. It's not once in a while at a holiday. You have to tell them every day and remind them because, like you said, there's so many distractions. The enemy is trying to destroy the family, right? To
Oh yeah.
separate us. So you have to constantly. I mean, we have a very, I mean, nothing against mothers. I mean, my wife, she's just like your wife, right? Amazing
Yeah,
woman,
awesome.
strong woman, but the job and the role of a father is very different, and we know how important it is. And what happens, there are a lot of people that suffer out there that don't have father figures, but it is so important to make sure that our children know that they're loved, that they are loved, and they are made in the image of God. Man, I mean, Blake, this, I mean, it sounds simple, right? Writing a letter, but the impact that that letter and you and your ministry and your organization, what they're doing is just, it's so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of writing a letter is it's not a new idea to
No,
write a letter. I will say, it's not easy. Just because it's something simple doesn't mean that it's easy. And there's a lot of
nope.
emotion involved as you go to write this letter, and you're thinking about your dad and the impact that he's had on you, which is really, um, as I went, for the last 19 years, I would meet people and I'd tell them my story, and almost every single one of them is like, "Man, I wish I had a letter from my dad."
Yeah.
But then every once in a while I'd meet someone and they would say, "Oh, I got a letter from my dad too." And it was almost like we were in the club together. Like I got a letter
Wow.
from my dad club. So honestly, when my children were little, I was like, I got to make sure my kids are in the club. Like I know if anyone knows the value of a letter, it's me. And so that's really where all this mission started because I went to write him the letter. I saw how difficult it was to write. I mean, I'm looking at a blank sheet of paper and I'm like, what the heck am I going to write here? And it
And
took me some time.
you started it too. You would think it'd
Yeah,
be easy, like you'd have a bunch of things like I could pull from here and there.
no, you're right. And it was hard. And then, so it was around that time that I finished the letter. One, it felt amazing to finish this letter. And everyone who does, man, it's like, okay, I have accomplished something. And, the letter is for your children, but then you end up, the dad is the one who feels the most immediate impact because it kind of
Yeah.
forces you to stop and think, okay, what is most important in my life? Yeah, it's my family, it's my children. Like, why am I giving all my
Yeah.
energy to my job? Obviously we've got to work and do well and we're providing for, but what's the purpose of that? Um, and so I realized that through that, man, I've got to help dads write this letter. Like we're never going to get to a million dads just by sharing my story, and so that's why I created a program, a process to really help dads write the letter and also put the best stuff in there. Like if we're going to write the letter,
Yeah.
man,
Oh,
let's put the
it can't
things.
be like an annual card where you write, "I'm proud of you." It's got to be really, and too, like you have, like I want to write a letter to my father and my mother. I've been thinking about this for a while. And to your earlier point, now is the time because
Yeah,
there is no guarantee, right? I just
right.
went to Israel with my mother, which was one of the most impactful moments of my life. Going away with my mother, who I had to share a room with. I said to my sister, "I am not sharing a room, mommy. This is going to be terrible." And I am so glad I did because it brought us so close together just by being together. But if I didn't share that moment, if I didn't have that opportunity to reflect on that, I wouldn't be able to say and express to my parents how much I appreciate them, how much I love them. But there is no time but now. You need to write the letter now because we don't know. We're not guaranteed tomorrow.
I got a text from a guy this week. His dad passed away 6 months ago. He went through my program, and I encouraged him to write a letter to their dad, like what you're talking about, a letter of gratitude. And so he said, "Man, my dad really wasn't that great of a dad, but I found it in me to write him this letter." So he gave it to him 6 months ago. He said he got a call like the
Mm,
next day. He said his dad was in tears. He said, "I've never
wow.
seen my dad cry," and said, "This is the best thing I've ever gotten." 6 months go by. His dad gets sick, goes in the hospital. He texts me, he said, "My dad's on his deathbed right now. I have no regrets. And I've already communicated everything that I needed to communicate to him. So I'm sitting here with there's no need to go say something more. It was all in the letter." And so, like to your point, man, we never know when our last day is going to be, when our parents' last day is going to be.
It's such a sense of peace. And I mean, so your dad was able to express his love, in a letter towards you. Is there a sense of regret or something you wish you could have said to him that you're not able to say today?
You know, the thing that I would love to be able to talk to my dad about, just showing him all the good things that have happened, like all the amazing things that have happened because of his one letter. Like his letter changed my life. But for the last 19 years, I've been telling my dad's story. And then it was only the last 2 years I started helping people write a letter. And so now these families all over the country are being impacted as these dads write a letter to, like, generationally impacted. And I would love, and I believe I will tell my dad one day and I'll see him again. I have that hope.
I believe so too. I believe that letter that he wrote was from God. There was a reason that he wrote that letter. More we don't know, of course, why it took place or why it happened, but the impact that one letter is making, like you said, generationally, breaking the curse, breaking the cycle. It's impacted so many people. It's amazing, right? That one letter, that one simple letter, the effect that it has and continues to have on people and their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm only thinking about my children and just the effect that, I mean, I could have gone a lot of different ways after my dad died. And not only did I not go down a bad path, man, I was able to turn it into something good. And it wasn't me, it was God. I'll tell you the best thing my dad did as my earthly father. He put a lot of spiritual advice. My dad believed the Bible was true. My dad loved God. And the best thing my dad did as my earthly father, he connected me to my heavenly father.
Hmm.
The
Oh,
best relationship that I could ever have. And so I'll always be grateful for that.
I agree. That is one of the best gifts we can, as fathers, right? We're the priest of our households. Like that is the best gift, the domestic church, building that foundation of faith. It's everything else we buy, you'll deteriorate, but that relationship with Christ will be there forever.
Yes, sir.
Blake, so we want to help you reach 1 million people. So tell us how I know, can I mention you're going to be on the Today Show next week? Oh, I think I mentioned it. You're
I
right.
guess you just did.
Oh, I can't edit that out. But yeah, Blake, you're going to be on the Today Show next week. So I wanted to, get you on because once you go on the Today Show, then you go on all these other shows and then you'll forget who I am. But how do people reach out to
Craig,
you
I
if
will
you are?
never forget who you are, man. I will
There's not a
never
lot of
forget.
Craig Syracuses that live in Jersey/Brooklyn. So
That's
yes,
right.
I am the guy. So tell me, how can people reach out to you or get involved, go through the program?
Yeah, just go to legacyletterchallenge.com and you can download the free framework, like all the sections of the letter. And then if you want to take it a step further and sign up for the master class, man, I really believe that you will not regret signing up for that. And I believe that I will help you write a better letter than what you'd write on your own. I actually have a money back guarantee on that. No one's taken me up on it yet. And then I'd partner with a lot of businesses and churches. And so a lot of financial advisors. I'm doing some teams within Walmart right now. And this team just finished and they said, man, this is the best thing we've ever done as a team. So it's like a private group. We make
Wow.
3 sessions virtually, but they're bonding as they writing a letter to their children and sharing about regrets that I mean, that's not normal things they're talking about in business,
Wow,
but it
that's
brings
great.
them together. So it's pretty cool. Some of the doors that God is opening up.
Oh, it's so powerful. Because you said earlier too, we can get as fathers too, we get so caught up in being providers from a financial standpoint that we forget. The best thing that happened for me personally during COVID was it exposed what I considered sacrifice. And all of the time that I was spending chasing what I thought was going to fulfill myself and my family's needs. And in the end, all I needed to do was be present, was to be there with my family, not running and chasing after everything to fulfill a need and insecurity or whatever the world says I need to do. So it exposed a lot as a father within me and my family. So Blake, I appreciate just coming on and talking to you because this is powerful and it's so necessary. And like you said, I know it's not, it's for fathers, but this could be adapted for mothers, for me writing a letter to my mom and dad. It's
Yeah.
universal in that
And
sense.
I actually have a mom's course and we've since added moms into the mission. So we haven't talked about dads, but our mission is also help 1 million moms write a letter as well. Everyone, needs this letter from their mom just as much as they need it from their dad.
Exactly. Blake, well, we will help you. Like, really a pleasure. Good luck next week on the Today Show. Hopefully, we continue to talk. And when you're in New York, if you want to stop by, I'm very close to where you will be. But I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Craig.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Walk in Faith. Always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through your words and actions. God bless you. Reach out to Blake to find out more information. God bless you.